Well, fluoride was actually used in World War II in the concentration camps. It was used to suppress people, to keep them down. So, it worries me greatly that this is still put in our water anywhere in the world, really.
Fluoride in excess is very harmful and is known to be a neurotoxin and lower the IQ, especially of children who are exposed to high dose of fluoride. And unfortunately, when it's in the water, you tend to absorb it a little bit faster than the fluoride trace small, minuscule amounts of fluoride that's in some of the soil and the food products. So although we do need a little bit of fluoride, we're getting way too much either at the dentist or in our drinking water for what we really need.
Hello, lovely people, and welcome to another episode of The Wellness Way. And I have an old friend of the show back who I absolutely adore, Dr. Brad Campbell, and we're going to take a deep dive into water. What we're made up of, all the different kinds of water, and let's just get to the bottom of it, because I know when I started my journey, I just didn't know where to start on the waterfront. I think I spent about a year. Dr. Bradley Campbell, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me back on. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Right, first of all, the body. So I've read lots of different figures on how much the body is made up of water, but most of them come in at around the 85%, but they don't include blood. And I know that this changes between your age and your gender and your weight and everything like that. So can you tell us about how much water is in the body and how important that is?
Yeah, I'd say water and the balance of the fluids is extremely important. And the exact amount is probably going to be debated for quite some time. But it depends on like where you're looking for the water. So there's intracellular water, extracellular water. I measure those every day in patients with a machine called a BIA, or bioimpedance analysis. So it'll tell you like body fat percentage, your skeletal muscle mass. It'll tell you a lot of different things, one of which is how hydrated you are, which is nice to know, because that's really what we want to know is like, are our cells getting hydrated?
Sorry to interrupt this podcast. Why don't you come and sign up to my newsletter at phillyjlay.com, where we can keep connected and we can talk about lots of things going on in the world. You will also get my free manifestation meditation so you can become a shit-hot manifester too. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. And turn your notifications on so you never miss an episode. Thank you.
For most people, like their cumulative, depends if you're talking about like mass or number of atoms, but some people say the body is 97% water. But it depends what type of tissue or metric you're using. Sometimes it's 55 to 60%. Some say up to 97%, but it sort of depends on the units and what they're talking about. So it can get a little confusing. Like our bones are about 22% water. Muscles can be about 3/4 water. Blood can be over 83% water, lungs can be 90%, and our brains are actually 95% water. So If we want like a healthy working brain, probably want to stay pretty well hydrated.
But the brain is also fat and cholesterol. And so can you just equate that, what is more important, having the water, having the fat and the cholesterol for the brain?
It's more important to have fat and cholesterol because the brain tissue itself is not water, but it sits in a big soup. It's almost like your brain is like a bowl of Jell-O. Like there is some sugar in there, there's some stuff in there, or like porridge or some type of, like yogurt. It's like it's mostly liquid, but it's not this like hard type of thing we see when we do autopsies. But when you're alive, your brain is 95% water, and the 5% that's doing the work is mostly fat, and it runs off of fat ideally, and then also runs off of sugar. But if you're not super hydrated, that's why one of the main reasons people get headaches. So one of the main causes of headaches is, again, like people being dehydrated. So a lot of people just have some water, have some electrolytes, and they're instantly cured of their headache.
But there is a slight problem that if you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated, aren't you? You've got to keep on top of this all day long, sip, sip, sip all day long.
Yep, it really helps. You can only really absorb about 8 to 12 ounces of water at a time, which is why you can't just chug 100 ounces or a gallon or 3 liters all at once, because you're just going to have to go to the bathroom right away.
Okay.
I guess I'll say a lot of people who don't drink water consistently or they're not hydrating very well, they'll start drinking more water and then they wake up at night to pee a lot, or they go to the bathroom every 30 to 60 minutes. But that's because the bladder is also a muscle. It has muscles in it. So if you haven't been using it for a period of time, it takes a couple of weeks or a month maximum to kind of get the bladder up to speed. Much like starting a new workout, it's going to take you time to get used to that new muscle weight balance. So it is definitely helpful to drink water and hydrating fluids throughout your day.
But you don't drink water with meals, do you?
Generally not. I think the body is innately intelligent, but there's some things we can do to help it out. Like you can have soups, you can have stews, which are mostly water or have a lot of water content in them, and your body can process it because it's mostly already broken down. You're not just going to throw a bunch of like raw veggies in a bowl of water and drink it. You're going to cook it for a period of time. So when you pre-cook soups and stews, you're giving your body almost a break in a way where it doesn't have to digest as much. So for someone with like a weak digestive system, soups, stews, smoothies can be really helpful. The problem is if you do that every breakfast or all the time, your stomach and your digestive capacity can actually weaken. And so that can start to cause digestive issues over time. And if you overconsume water during a meal, usually more than the 8 to 10 ounces, you can start getting undigested food in your stools. And when people really notice this is when they're not feeling super well, or when they start getting over 50 years of age, because your body doesn't make as much digestive enzyme capacity or digestive acid. So you don't absorb things like B12 and iron as well. And you start noticing a lot of this digestive shift in your body. So young people might be like, I don't know what you're talking about, but someone who's 65 for sure has some experiences with that.
Yeah, I think I was about 50 when I went on digestive enzymes, and they made such a big difference to the way I felt. But I was drinking quite a lot with meals, and I didn't know at that point that you're just flushing everything through and you're not getting to digest and take in the nutrients. So that's a really important thing for our audience to know. Next topic I have covered in this podcast, but I want to cover it again. Fluoride in the water.
We do know that a little bit of fluoride is unavoidable. It's necessary for our bone development. Calc fluor is a homeopathic remedy that helps harden the teeth and harden the bones. So a little bit is great. The problem is there are different forms of fluoride. You'd have to probably consult a toxicologist to know for sure what they are. But fluoride in excess is very harmful and is known to be a neurotoxin and lower the IQ, especially of children who are exposed to too high a dose of fluoride. And unfortunately, when it's in the water, you tend to absorb it a little bit faster than the fluoride trace small, minuscule amounts of fluoride that's in some of the soil and the food products. So although we do need a little bit of fluoride, we're getting way too much either at the dentist or in our drinking water for what we really need.
Well, fluoride was actually used in World War II in the concentration camps. It was used to suppress people, to keep them down. So, it worries me greatly that this is still put in our water anywhere in the world, really. And if you look at toothpaste, and the fact that the children have children's toothpaste and the adults have adults' toothpaste, but if you look at toothpaste, there's actually a warning on the back of the majority of toothpaste that tell you not to eat it because it can kill you. It's harmful because of the fluoride.
My dad's a dentist, and he's wrapping up his career in the next number of years, and he used to promote fluoride. Now he's on fluoride-free toothpaste, and it's nice to see him transition. But I remember as a kid, he's like, don't eat the toothpaste. But I'm like, it tastes so good. It's minty fresh. Like, I just have to eat it. I'm like, I don't know how much smarter I could have been without that. But man, it was, yeah.
You're doing pretty well on the smart front now. You've got more letters after your name than any other doctor I know, love. So we'll take you as you are. So, we covered fluoride, and I actually had Jo Warren from the Fluoride Association on here last year. And she says that it's a medical procedure, that by putting it in the water, she feels very strongly that it is a medical procedure. And I know for one, I just don't want it in my water. There's nothing in me that wants fluoride in my water. But there's lots of other stuff in the water. So let's break down tap municipal water. What kind of stuff are we going to get? Why is this so important to clean your water?
Oh man. Water is one of the biggest sources of toxins that people are exposed to, and they don't even know it. And their government, their city officials are generally not going to even tell them. And I always use the line, if you're not testing, you're guessing. So if you haven't sent your water from your house to a lab to have it tested for different contaminants, some forever chemicals, heavy metals, fluoride, chlorine, lead, sometimes arsenic is in there. There can be a whole bunch of things, microplastics in the water, because the pipes that get used to deliver the water to your house are often not made of the best materials. The water in my area, Chicago, Illinois, United States, has over 80% of the water contaminated with lead. And that also lowers your IQ and causes heart disease and cancer. So I think EWG, and there's some different tap water databases, at least for the United States online, that find different carcinogens in the water. So if you're wondering, like, it's not just one thing that causes cancer, it causes a lot of these problems, but the overall toxic burden is not great. One of my friends calls tap water infertility water, because a lot of the chemicals in there, atrazine and other things that are in there that affect gender, affect sex and reproduction and fertility rates. So you really have to be mindful and do your best to, I believe, get a very excellent filtration system. You could buy water. You generally would want to buy glass water, or stuff that's delivered in glass. Plastic, overall, big picture, is not that bad. If, like, you have to, for whatever financial reason, go with water that you buy out of plastic, that's probably better to drink clean water in plastic than tap water in glass, because people were like, well, what about the plastic? So my personal perspective is that, like, the plastic is not super terrible, and you can get certain BPA free or BPS free plastics for water delivery. But ideally, we would have water straight from nature, or rain collection, or running down a mountain or a stream or a river or an ocean that we purify and remove some of the salt. And my personal favorite, though, for my patients is to have them buy a whole house filter, a filter that goes under the sink, or a countertop filter to help for their specific water needs.
Okay, so we're going to do a breakdown of those, because I find this so confusing. And I think it was about a year ago, you did a survey, you did some trials between the Big Berkey and the Kanga. But before we get on to that, let's break down all the different types of water filtration that you can get. So you have carbon, you have, name some other ones. Reverse osmosis. Now, I want to talk about that as well, because I looked at that, but it's kind of dead water in my mind. So let's break them down. Start at the top for us and break down all the different types of water filters.
So carbon is probably the closest to nature. When you think of carbon, you think of living material on the periodic table. So that's one of the most common in even like Brita filters or household water pitcher filters. They remove organic contaminants, different heavy metals, a little bit chlorine. They help with taste and odor. You usually can taste the difference after something goes through a carbon filter. That's my personal favorite. So activated carbon, I think, is a great method of helping water purification. Then you have reverse osmosis, which, as you said, is kind of a dead water system. It's a new technology. And what the reverse osmosis is doing is basically pulling out all of the bad materials. Like a carbon filter doesn't really pull out all of the toxicity, but a reverse osmosis, if it's really effective, it pulls out 99.99%, or at least 99.9% of all the contaminants. But it also pulls out all the minerals and a lot of the energetics of the water. You know, people are like, ooh, energy of water, what's that about? But the water does hold on to different energetic frequencies. And reverse osmosis, to a lot of people, feels sterile. It tastes sterile because water naturally has different minerals and salts in it, sulfur compounds and things of that nature, which make the water taste better. People who have where they only drink soda or tea or coffee or alcohol, they sometimes don't have or they have tons of sugar in their diet. They don't have the perception of water's tasting different, but it really helps to start to wake people up and have them taste different forms of tap water with different bottles of water, like back to back. And you can start developing your intuitive awareness of what's best for you. And once you start doing that, most people stray away from reverse osmosis. But if you do have reverse osmosis, it can be helpful at removing all the contaminants, but you have to re-energize the water and you have to add some minerals back into it to make it cleaner.
I have to say I add minerals to my water anyway, because I think we're all mineral deficient. And I've used one that I've loved for the last 6-7 years, but for the last year, I haven't been able to buy it. And it was actually one that I got from Amazon, concentrated mineral drops, CMD. And for a year, I haven't been able to get this. Thank God I discovered the brilliant Barbara O'Neill and discovered Celtic sea salt. So I'm just using that now because I have bags and bags of that waiting to preserve my food for the next 20 years if the shit hits the fan. So I'm well prepared. So that is a very good way of doing it. Pink Himalayan salt, do you think that remineralizes water or not?
I think it does. I think a lot of it might depend on the source of the pink Himalayan salt itself or where you're getting the Celtic sea salt. I personally feel like the Celtic is a little bit better. That could be because I have Celtic ancestry, from the UK. Like I'm 5/8 British and got some Scotch Irish in me as well. So just a good European mutt. So for me, I think that might feel better because our ancestry is from there, whereas people maybe from near the Himalayas might do better with that. But, I'm not opposed to pink Himalayan, but I think it is good to get it from a reputable source.
Somebody said to me a couple of years ago, you've got to stop using pink Himalayan salt because once the Himalayan mountains are gone, they're gone. The sea, we can keep getting it out of the sea the whole time it's washing up. And if it's done properly, it's drying properly, sun-dried, air dried, it's not going anywhere near a factory. My Celtic salt actually comes in from France. It doesn't come in from England at all. I actually get mine shipped in from France. And I love the way that it's kind of a dark grey. And the French always joke about the fact that when they sell salt to the supermarkets in the UK, they give them the white shit and then they keep the lovely grey stuff for themselves because the English are so thick that we don't notice. They go, oh, that's nice white salt. That did worry me about the Himalayan pink salt. And then I saw a post about 6 months ago of a pink Himalayan salt mine somewhere that was being blown up in the Middle East. I can't remember where it was, and it was kind of fake stuff. And I kind of thought, oh my God, I don't know where it's coming from. But I think the thing that really topped it for me and made me laugh most was I bought some pink Himalayan salt. And on the packet, this is a few years ago, on the packet, it said, in the making for 15 million years. And then it had a use by date, which was 5 years later. And I was trying to equate 15 million years in the making. I've got to use it within 5 years. And I just thought the whole thing's
that's nuts.
Is a minefield, isn't it? So you're okay with that, and that's fine, but you prefer the Celtic sea salt. So would you use any other forms of like CMD? I mean, the one I used to get from Amazon was from Utah.
Utah has some really good ones. I think Redmond's is the newer company that's based out of Utah that has Redmond's real salt, which is quite good. I also like Concentrate Trace Mineral Drops is pretty good, and a company called Aqua True TRU has a perfect mineral drops, which is quite nice. One of my favorites is Quinton, Quinton, Quinton or Quinton, which is sort of like a liquid IV. It actually used to be used as IV therapy back in World War II, I believe. So that's from the Dead Sea, and that's also a really helpful source of minerals. But big picture perspective is that most of our minerals don't even come from water. The vast, by like sheer number or quantity, the majority of our minerals come from food, and it's the farming practices that have depleted the soil minerals because of monocrop agriculture instead of regenerative agriculture, and the soil needs to be regenerated and healed. But the lack of mineral content in the soil creates less minerals in the food. Then we actually don't get as satiated by the food, so we eat more, get bigger and bigger and bigger and gain weight. And then that creates a lot of health problems.
Yes, I remember always being told when I was younger, and I struggled with my weight all my life to various degrees, and I was always told to drink a glass of water half an hour before you eat, and then you're not as hungry because you're, hopefully remineralizing your body. Although, as you said, it's really hard to do that now without, a little bit of help along the way. What other water filters? So I want to talk to you about the Berkey and the Kanga, actually, because you really did some good research on this. And Berkey have been having problems recently. I believe there's a lawsuit against them. And somebody has claimed that their product is leaching aluminium into the water. So when I read that, I messaged you and asked you about it, and you told me some very interesting facts that I'd like you to share, please.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was doing a home test I've done tests with Kangen in the past. A couple of years ago, I was doing ones on Berkey and AquaTrue and comparing how they were doing. But I do have an opinion on Kangen, which is interesting. But let's get to the Berkey issue. So the head of Berkey has had issues with the government for some time. He's sort of been in the realm of, knowing that not everything that the government approves is safe or not for us. Good example in the United States is raw milk. We have raw milk in many states is illegal, even though it's been consumed for millennia. And so, and that's to protect people from bacterial risk and milk contamination as it transports to different grocery stores and your household, et cetera. But there's a safe way to consume raw milk. And it's, unfortunately, when you process milk to make it safer, we end up causing a lot of problems. And so in a similar way, the Berkey founder has had issues with government control and regulation, so has had refused to do some of their specific water testing and instead did some independent water testing on his products from independent labs. Partially it's cheaper, partially he doesn't like some of the states and their specific legal regulations and agree with their laws and labeling stuff. So like California and Iowa, it's hard to get Berkey filters there. So they've been back and forth for their whole company span. Berkey was originally designed to be a product that people could use in the wilderness to clean water, but in kind of because it was cheap and very effective, became a household name for water filtration because it used to be about half the price of other water filtration systems. And it generally does a very good job when it's used and put together how it's supposed to be. But in the water realms, I've learned from doing some deep dives that almost every big name water company, the top 10, have all been sued at some point. And some of that is PR and publicity, because if you can make a post that says hey, there's a lawsuit against this company from aluminum in their water, then that makes them look really bad. And whether or not most people aren't going to follow up on that lawsuit later and say hey, what was the actual verdict? Did that lawsuit even make it to court? Did it get thrown out? So just the allegation on Twitter or on any social media platform, now it's X, not Twitter, but on any of those social media platforms, could go viral and ruin a company's reputation and create a lot of sales for another company. And most of the people who are making those lawsuits are selling other water filters. It turns out most people who make the videos promoting one or another are selling a product, making a bunch of affiliate money or giving discounts or whatever it might be. They have some financial affiliation in what they're recommending. So it's hard for me sometimes to talk about which water filters I prefer, because followers and friends of mine will lose thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, some of them, if a bunch of their people stop using their water system. So, and recommending and promoting it and that sort of thing. So it's tricky, but the alumina in Berkey filters is actually good. And it's been a wellness fad for the last 5 years that people don't even realize it, called zeolite. TRS spray or zeolites are actually alumina silicate, which is extremely beneficial to our bodies because it can bind up heavy metals and get it out of our body. So there's different forms of aluminum and alumina and how they bind biochemically with other compounds. So the form of alumina that Berkey water filters use is actually a good one, not a bad one, which is weird for people to hear about. They're like, ooh, aluminum cans, I'm going to get they think like, ooh, the aluminum in my brain is associated with different forms of dementia. That's not good. I don't want that. But different forms of aluminum, depending on what they're bound to, can actually be wildly helpful for your body.
I'm a big fan of zeolite, and I've done a couple of big zeolite detoxes in my life. And I would say to anybody, if you're going to do a heavy metal detox, always do it under supervision. Wouldn't you agree, Dr. Campbell?
Definitely.
I was concerned when I heard there was aluminium leaching, and I was seeing it everywhere on social media, and I was going, oh my God, I've got 2 big Birkis. I love it. But the water does taste so pure and just clean, and I can't drink tap water now.
Yeah, it's so different. And the Berkey water also will add some sulfur to the water, which is good for your phase 2 liver detoxification as well. So people go, oh, there's more particulate matter, or like the parts per million is a little bit higher, but it's removing the bad stuff and adding good stuff, which is kind of what you want, really. It's like adding healthy minerals back in.
And they are one of the few companies that actually have fluoride filters, which you buy separately, the white filters that you put underneath. Why do the other companies not do fluoride filters? Why? I mean, Berkey is the only one I've come across that does.
Yeah, it's pretty tricky. So our reverse osmosis will remove a lot of fluoride. The AquaTrue system does 95% of fluoride, and it has like 3-stage filters, but you have to add an extra filtration step to do that. So it costs more money. So it's kind of like a business side of things. And the market for people who want to avoid fluoride is not as big as the general water filter market. So I think from a financial standpoint, most companies don't start out with fluoride filters, but usually after a decade or two, they get enough of a customer base where they go, oh, maybe 20%, 10% of our market doesn't want fluoride anymore. Now let's add in a second or a third stage filtration for fluoride removal. But part of the fluoride removal, at least with the Berkey, is adding some of that aluminum silica into the water. So that's part of how that works.
That's really good to know. We've talked about Berkey, we've talked about reverse osmosis. Tell us a little bit more about Kanga, because when you did your trials on it, I hadn't heard of Kanga. So I was just like, what's the Kanga filter? And so many people messaged me and said, oh, it's the best on the market, which, I'm not saying that in any shape or form. And you chose the Berkey over it. But can you explain what the Kanga filter is and what it does?
So yeah, the Kangen filter is a alkalinizing, ionizing water filtration device. So it can change the pH of the water, and it can purify the water. And there also go by names of like Leveluck or Enagic or Kangen or Kanga. But there's a bunch of models that they now have. They're typically ones that you have to hook up to your sink. And the 2 main issues that I have with it is that it's much more expensive than other filtration systems. And it's awkward for me to talk about because like I said, I have friends who make a living 6-7 figures a year selling these machines, and they're not my favorite. And that's just my personal experience with my family. With every patient I've had has had negative experience with them. They have a great experience for the first 2 to 3 years. And then what happens is either they over alkalinize their water, which then sometimes dilutes their stomach acid, and they get digestive over alkalinization. So they can't break down certain food things as well. Or what happens is the machines actually get moldy. Even if they're being cleaned exactly as they're supposed to, they have a lot of like tubing and intricacies inside of the machines. And so they end up getting fungal or mold infections or like toxicity from the water machine themselves, which happened to my personal family. It's happened to dozens of my patients. So I find that to be problematic. And even when you ship the machine back to the company, they clean it all, it comes back. It just happens eventually anyway. So for me, I wouldn't want a water machine that gets moldy.
No, I wouldn't either. And it's the Kanga, you fit it into your system, don't you?
Yes.
And a lot of people have said to me the reason that it is so popular is because it energizes the water as well as alkalining it. And I want to come to alkaline water because there's a little bit of a fad going on here in the UK at the moment. I don't know if it's happening over where you are, but people are buying alkaline water to alkaline their body. Now we know, the works of Dr. Otto Warburg, when he won the Nobel Peace Prize, said nothing, including cancer, can grow in an alkaline body. And a lot of people think that if you're having alkaline water, you're alkalining your body. Now, I've always alkalined my body by having lemon in my water. And I remember when I started my healing journey, and my now ex-husband was going, "Don't be so stupid, that's acidic." And I'm going, "No, but it alkalines your body." And he wouldn't believe me. Talk to us about alkalining and, acidic bodies and how water can help.
Yep. It is important for sure to kind of balance the acid alkaline balance inside of your body, but particularly inside of food and water. In general, I don't think you have to worry about water alkalinity too much if it's a natural source of water, like from a mountain spring or from rainwater, and if it's from in a good filter. But machines that create water that is an over 7.8 pH, because when you get the pH scales from 0 or 1 to 14, when you get over 7, that's more of an alkaline pH, and water that's between 6 to 8 is generally tolerable for most people. But when you start getting 8.0, 9.0 or higher, that can overly alkalize somebody, and you have acid in your stomach. So if you drink too much alkaline things, it neutralizes some of the stomach acid, and that can create different bacterial overgrowth or fungal overgrowth in the intestines, and that can create a whole slew of problems that you probably don't want. So the best way I think to think about it is that people talk about like their blood's acidic or their blood's overly alkaline. But if your blood changes more than 0.1 pH, you will actually die. So like your kidneys regulate the pH of your blood very tightly. I think it's like even 0.01 pH change is deadly. So you have something in your blood work where you can look at your electrolytes in a complete metabolic panel, CMP, and your anion gap is a much better marker of, are you acidic or alkaline? And you can look at salivary pH, you can look at urine pH, you can look at pH even of your stool, you can look at the anion gap in your blood, and it kind of gives you an idea of what's going on inside of your body. But most of the time, it's your lungs that regulate your pH balance and your breath. So you can tell with how someone is breathing if they're more acidic or alkaline in general. Like your blood doesn't change, but in general, your body can become more acidic or alkaline, and your anion gap can tell you that from blood work. But your lungs and your breath is the main way that we regulate the pH in our bodies, and the kidneys are kind of the secondary way, which is how we regulate the blood pH as well. So you have your kidney and your lungs working in perfect harmony to can maintain a constant balance of where your pH is.
Okay, I used to use those little pH sticks that you just wee on, the ones that you dip in swimming pools. So I used to have my little wee stick every morning, and I had such a clean diet, I can't tell you. I was so healthy at that moment of my life on my healing journey, or I thought I was. I mean, I was making leaps and bounds every day, but I could not bring my levels down. I had really, really high levels in my body, acid levels, and I'd work so hard on it, and then I'd just literally smell a biscuit, and it would just not even eat it. It would just be and it would go off the scale again. Is it just me that finds it really hard to regulate the body?
No, a lot of people are that way, especially with salivary or urine pH. A lot of people are on the more acidic side, and you actually want your urine to be slightly acidic based on certain gut and urinary bladder flora. So different bacteria, good and bad, that you have in your bladder. Sometimes you want the pH to be a little more alkaline or acidic to prevent bladder infections, which is interesting. So it's not like everybody has to be the exact same pH. But I do think that one of the solutions for people is to eat more of alkalinizing foods. So if you look at the alkaline ASH diet, you can look at foods that create more acidity inside of your body, like pastries and cupcakes and muffins, certain chocolate, peanuts, and you can look at certain things that create more alkalinity, like almonds, lemon water, different forms of maple syrup, so our sweeteners is a little more alkalizing versus white sugar, which is more acidifying. Different fruits and veggies also can be more acidifying or more alkalinizing. So that's one big way to do it. but I personally find that it's someone's state of their nervous system that's regulating their breath rate that creates the biggest shift in what's going to help them change that pH.
I didn't know that. I mean, I'm a breathwork coach and I didn't know that. So, I trained with Soma Breath and I love breath and I do breath work every morning when I wake up. And I do it every day on my walk and, I breathe in my gut biome and it is so important. But I didn't know that it could actually change. I knew it changed your gut, but I didn't know it could change the acidity and alkaline of your body. So thank you for that. I should just work a bit harder. And I have to say, when I was weeing on my little sticks, I wasn't doing breath work every day. So I'm just going to park that. I've got to come back and ask you one more questions about my little urine sticks. I didn't buy urine sticks. I actually bought swimming pool sticks. Are they off Amazon? So it's just like, are they the same for the body as you put in the swimming pool, or was I buying the totally wrong product?
It can work the same, but you want to find a stick that can tell between like a 6.8, 6.6, 6.4, 6.2, rather than just like 6, 7, 8. But I think it depends on the stick itself.
Okay. I might try again.
But as far as the lungs go, there's something called hypercapnia, which makes the blood more acidic, which is when you have too much carbon dioxide. So the way to make the body less acidic is actually to focus on breathing out more and lengthening the exhale, which also will calm people down. So most people are too stressed, so they breathe in way more than they breathe out. They're using their like upper neck muscles to breathe and some of their intercostal muscles rather than breathing it relaxed shoulders and breathing into their belly. And so they tend to have less of an exhale. So they breathe out less carbon dioxide. And then that creates an imbalance in the pH of their body.
Okay. I mean, that's a very good tip for everybody. Just the really important thing with breath work is to breathe in through your nose and to get your NO, your nitric oxide in.
Oh, yes.
I always imagine that I have two straws in the back of my spine. So I breathe in those straws, which really, really helps to go low down into the diaphragm. And then anybody who's suffering from any kind of stress, anything like that, if you do the 2 times, which is, so you can breathe in for 2, out for 4, breathe in for 4, out for 8, in for 3, out for 6, but just do it 2 times and regulate the breath like that. So presumably, I'm really excited now. I want to go and buy some little sticks and start testing myself.
Test it before and after the breath work and let me know how it goes.
I'm going to.
Yeah. Very cool.
So you spoke earlier about the diet, about alkalining the body with diet. And we also spoke about soups and stews and things earlier and smoothies. And I want to come to one of my favorite subjects, which just blew my mind when I came across the TEDx Salon, New York Salon TED Talk with Dr. Gerald Pollack on easy water. And I haven't covered easy water for about a year on the podcast. And it did blow my mind because once you know about this, it puts your whole mind frame kind of like, oh, I want my easy. Tell us about easy and the works of Dr. Gerald Pollack.
It's known as like the 4th phase of water. Water is more of like a gelatinous substance. There's so much in there. It's like water can hold energetic frequencies and memory. It's water as a memory device. It's water as like a frequency holding device. I usually go back to Masaru Emoto's work, Hidden Messages in Water. And to me, that's similar in a way. It's sort of like when you have Masaru Emoto's book, you can even Google or YouTube it, and there's different crystals that'll form based on what words or sounds water is even like labeled with or spoken to. Or
even essential oils he used music, he used the whole lot. I actually worked with his son on my book, The Natural Wellness Journal. I just have to say this because I just couldn't believe that it happened. And he actually, I don't know how I got his email, but he allowed me to publish 8 of his father's photographs in The Natural Wellness Journal. And it is quite extraordinary that water holds all this energy. So come back to easy water.
Well, I mean, it's sort of like if you think of your brain being 95% water, um, that's probably a really important part of what your brain is doing, and it's very rarely studied. But Gerald Pollack is definitely onto something about the easy water. But honestly, you could probably explain it better than I could at this point because I haven't seen the whole podcast. But structuring water is really important. I've asked one of my friends who's specialized in structured water, Dr. Catherine Clinton, about structured water. So she might be a good person for your podcast, actually. But
I've had her on. We've talked structured
water.
Yeah.
So she knows way more than I do. I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna claim, ignorant on that one. But I think what I learned most from her is that you can structure water with sunlight. You can structure water with different like devices or mechanical stirring devices. But my takeaway was that moving your body is what structures your internal water. So whether or not you're drinking water that is pre-structured, you can post-structure the water after you drink it by going out into sunlight and just going for a walk. So for me, I try to convince my patients to walk after they eat because it lowers the glycemic response. It helps them digest better. It calms them down. It's just better in so many different ways, but that'll help restructure their water as well.
When I was a child, which many moons ago, we were always sent for a walk after our meal. And when you think about when you're at school and you go out into the playground, you go and have your lunch and then you go out and play. So you're running around and you're, on the climbing frame and you were kind of working your body. And now we have got into this incredibly lethargic world where I don't think my children really played at lunchtime at school. They go out a bit, but they didn't really play. And if it was raining, it was like, we'll stay inside. And when I was a kid, it was just like, get out there. It's rain. It's not going to hurt you. But we have gone into this very, very cushioned world and quite a toxic world. So I'm really glad that we've had a chance to break this down. The one other thing I will add about easy water, because I think it's really important, is greens. So again, your mum would always say, eat your spinach. And if you have green water, then that helps your telomeres to expand. Your telomeres are obviously the little things that are going to give you longevity. So, if you want to live a long, healthy life, have your easy water, your greens, put the spinach in, put the cucumber, celery, all of that in, and that is water.
Yeah, the water inside of food is pre-structured. So, right, there was a trend in some of the influencers saying like, never drink your water, only eat your water. And they were saying like have watermelon and cucumber and spinach and like the hydrating vegetables, and they literally would not drink water, coffee, tea, etc. And that was like a form of cleansing themselves from basic like peasant water is what they were calling it, just like the translucent water. It's like you should have colored water, not translucent water. So everyone goes through different phases, but it is interesting that I think the water inside of food tends to hydrate us a little better.
I love that. I haven't heard that saying before, and I think it is really important because people tend to forget that food is water as well. I always thought that cucumber was just water, so it had no nutritional value. And then when you discover, can you give us some of the benefits of cucumber?
Oh my gosh. It's well, besides like people who put it on their face for anti-aging, it's good for blood sugar, good for constipation, good for weight loss. It's great just for your whole kidney and bladder system as well. Some good fiber for gut flora.
And you mentioned watermelon there, and we know that watermelon has a lot of very special properties that other foods don't have. Can you run us through those?
It makes summer worth living. That's my favorite. It's like, watermelon's like, it's sweet, but highly hydrating. It's got some natural vitamin C. It's generally got some decent vitamin A, magnesium, potassium, so some natural electrolytes in there. It even has a little bit of protein in watermelon. It's like less than a gram, but there is some in there. Also has citrulline, which helps with blood flow. So even like erectile dysfunction, I'll give my patients high doses of citrulline with a little bit of arginine to help open their capillaries. And some eye support as well with watermelon and lycopene for the prostate. So numerous benefits.
Does it not also give you glutathione or helps you make glutathione?
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. And I know it has like heart and yeah, some different inflammatory support. Definitely.
So it is lovely. And so, there are lots of waters that you can get. What was your friend saying again? Can you repeat that? I loved it.
Oh, which one about the peasant water?
Yeah, peasant water. So,
Yeah.
and your friend's absolutely right. Anybody can get it out the tap, but go and drink your food and take that in. I think that is a really great idea. So we are coming to the end of our podcast, and I know that I've missed something out. Oh, yes, I have. I'm just going through my notes. Distilling water. Can you talk to us about distilling water? We haven't covered that.
So water distillation machines are, basically what it's doing is it's trying to act almost like nature does, where water in the ocean or lakes will evaporate, go up into the sky, form a cloud, and then come back down. So distillation involves heating the liquid to boiling, so it turns into vapor, converting the liquid after it's in the vapor into water by recondensing it and then collecting the condensation. So it's mimicking what nature naturally does. So I like it a little bit better than reverse osmosis. Um, there are different quality distillation machines, but it also ends up having like hyper purity or almost no minerals or toxins in the distillation process because the heavy metals and a lot of the compounds are not evaporated. So the water evaporates, gets recondensed, and comes back into water, but the particulate matter gets left behind in the original water source. So it's super clean water, but drinking distilled water is usually designed for cleansing, or the intention is to pull different toxins and minerals out of your body when you drink it. So you drink a bunch of distilled water so you can pee out different toxins or unhealthy particulate matter, toxins, minerals, etc., from your body. I think in some ways it's a little bit of a dead water as well, like energetically. But I have many patients who go on like a distilled water only kind of cleanse and do feel a significant change. So my advice is always to try it and see what you think.
I think that's really good advice because every single person is a study of one, and you have to find what actually suits you. I bought a water distiller. I was so horrified at how dirty it was after I distilled my first batch of water. And there was a cleaner that came in the packet, and it said to clean it out afterwards. And I kind of thought, oh, I must maybe have to use it like 50 times before I have to clean it. And then I looked inside and I just kind of thought, I was horrified, and I just couldn't believe that had come out of my tap. A lot of people, because I know distillers are expensive, and so some people might think, well, maybe if I boil water, will that actually purify it? And that was an Ayurvedic tradition as well, to boil water and boil it right down. It becomes a little bit sweet and a little bit salty. What would you say to that?
I've not personally tried that myself yet. I know boiling water will kill, different bacteria or infections that are in water. So almost all things will die from boiling it. But I haven't actually tried that yet. So I would love to give it a try. I know they say boil it for at least one water, 3 minutes at high altitude. Yeah, you can kill different bacteria, viruses, protozoa, but as far as I know, it doesn't reduce or filter out any of the chemicals or toxins or carcinogens that are in most tap water. So it wouldn't be my go-to method, but in a pinch, if you're worried about contamination or infections in the water, that could be quite helpful.
Okay, that's good to know. There was a lot of talk going around that maybe the COVID virus was in the water for a while. I don't know whether you saw that. So yeah, so you can boil and get the viruses out, and I think that's, if you've got nothing else available to you, what you got to lose, really. So what filtration system do you have in your house?
I currently have a Berkey filter, and yeah, I have a Berkey and an AquaTrue, and I have bought one called Atla, ATLA, that I'm just about to install in my sink. So I'm still experimenting and doing some science over here.
Okay, and you talk about a whole house water filter, and
Yep.
when I started looking into all of this, And I heard, the Gersten theory. What was the daughter of Dr. Gersten called? I can't remember. I saw her talking. She was about 90, and she said that she wouldn't shower unless it had a filter, and she'd rather kind of go a month without a shower than get in one. I'm like, really? And obviously the skin is the largest organ of the body. What would you suggest for protecting your skin in baths and showers?
Either a whole house filter, or there's different ones that'll attach to your shower. I've used not clear filter. There's one called a Jolie, which is a little more expensive. Berkey actually was making shower filters for a time. There's Aquasana is the one I'm used the most often for a different shower filter, but there are a number of shower filters that go in and out of fashion. My current one is the Aquasana one that I'm using. Symbiotic, I believe, has a shower filter as well. So there's a few different ones, but a lot of my patients will shower in unfiltered showers and their skin breaks out and they go back to their shower filter and their skin's perfectly fine.
Yeah, that says a lot, doesn't it? And then we get to the really tricky one when you go away on holiday. And, we spent 3 years locked down, not really getting on holiday. And then everybody was going abroad and you sit by these pools that are full of chemicals. Now, you and I don't use sunblock with all the, toxic things in. What do you do to protect yourself from that really toxic water in a swimming pool?
So better quality food, more antioxidants, lots of water, and then iodine, because iodine will push out chlorine and some bromine that's in there. So they're all halogens on the same column in the periodic table of elements. So if you up your iodine through a supplement or through seaweed or raw milk or other natural iodine sources, I believe there's a decent amount of iodine actually in some different meat products and definitely in certain seafood as well. That helps quite a bit. So for me, I take some iodine snacks with me in seaweed when I go to the pool.
That's really good advice. They've just banned buying iodine in the UK.
What?
I don't know.
No.
I went into a chemist to get some about a month ago, and she said, "Oh no, the government have put a danger warning on it, and you can't buy it." And I knew there was a little old-fashioned chemist, kind of just down another little road, and I went there and said, "Have you got any iodine?" And they went, "We've only got one bottle left. We can't seem to get any more." I went, "I'll have that." I'm like, yeah, I was really shocked. And this is the iodine that you paint on your body, and you do the iodine test. And if it disappears, you're depleted. Another tip that I do in a swimming pool, and, there are times that you go, I've only had one holiday in the last 5 years, but it was hot and I wanted to get in the pool. And that's that I cover myself with coconut oil to block it out. And I build a barrier up with a good thick coconut barrier. So that's a little one to try. We haven't mentioned ceramic filters here. Yep. Can we just touch on what a ceramic filter is compared to a carbon filter?
A lot of times you see or use ceramic filters in like different multi-stage water filtration systems for whole houses. But they can trap different bacteria, protozoa. Some of them trap different viruses. They're used in connection with other methods to increase their effectiveness against a lot of different pollutants or toxins in the water. So it's just another good form of water filtration.
Okay, so that's another good one. Right, we're at the end of our podcast. As always, it has been a complete and utter joy talking to you. You are a minefield of information. Can you just tell everybody where they can come and find you, what courses you've got up?
So I'm most active on Instagram, which is Dr. Bradley Campbell, at Dr. Bradley Campbell. Also have the same username for TikTok and YouTube. And you can find me on drbradleycampbell.com, which has links to the membership if people want to ask me questions one-on-one. You can do it in a group call in the full membership, or you can write me a couple paragraphs and I'll answer your question in video form. And post it to the membership. The membership has closing in on 1,000 videos now for ways for you to learn and get healthier. There's a bunch of free stuff that you get when you join and some other discounts, and you get access to some different member events we have and recordings of all those events. So I'm excited because for the rest of my career, it's just going to be creating more and more content. and it's overwhelming for people, but there's a search engine. So you can type in something like distilled water, and every time I've ever talked about distilled water, it pops right up with the best ones at the top. So you can kind of like search and then listen to whatever type of health information you're looking for.
That's brilliant. And you also give away so much free information on Instagram, and you have done since I started following you back in 2020. And also your Sunday memes and funnies are hysterical.
Thanks.
And so if there's no other reason at all, if you don't give a shit about your health, just go and follow Dr. Bradley Campbell for his Sunday funnies. Dr. Campbell, thank you so much for coming on the show again today. It's been a joy. Bless you.
Thank you so much, Philly.
We'll see you soon. Goodbye, everybody. Have a good rest of your week. Thank you.